Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Salman Afzal Sheikh. I am a registered medical practitioner currently working as an emergency medical physician. In the previous video, I talked in detail about high blood pressure, that what is hypertension, how does it occurs, what are its causes, and what are the symptoms which it produces and why it should be treated. In this video, I'm gonna talk about in detail that what are the major diseases and clinical disorders which are associated with high blood pressure and which can occur if high blood pressure is not treated in time. My friends, we all know that high blood pressure and high cholesterol are the very serious and damaging conditions, but very few of us know that how much damage they can produce in our body and to which extent they can lead damage to our body. The most important disease which can occur if a high blood pressure and high cholesterol is not treated in time is heart attack. Heart attack is a very drastic condition and it can lead to sudden death. If high blood pressure or high cholesterol is not treated in time, over a period of time, these diseases lead to thickening of blood vessels. And when blood vessels thicken, the particular portion of blood vessels loses its ability to dilate when it is required by that particular organ. For example, when we do exercise or when we put any physical strain on our body, our heart need a lot of blood, and when a patient suffers from high blood pressure for over a long period of time, the blood vessels in the heart loses their ability to dilate and they cannot put a large amount of blood as required by heart in that period of time. So what happens? The particular portion of heart dies because of lack of blood and lack of oxygen. This is what we call heart attack in a layman term. Or when a high cholesterol keeps on rolling in the body for over a long period of time, that cholesterol plaque leads to the creation of an atherosclerotic plaque, and that atherosclerotic plaque block a particular blood vessel in the heart and it leads to the heart attack. Another important disease which occur because of high cholesterol and high blood pressure is heart failure. As I already mentioned, that high blood pressure puts a lot of strain on the blood vessels. The blood vessels become thickened over a period of time. When the blood vessels thicken, the required organ cannot receive the proper amount of blood. What happens then? If a heart does not receive a proper amount of blood for over a long period of time, the heart will lose its ability to pump blood. And when for a long period of time this occurs continuously, ultimately heart will shut down, and that shutdown will lead to heart failure, and it will ultimately lead to the death of a person who is suffering from high blood pressure. The other important disease which can occur if high blood pressure and high cholesterol is not treated in time is stroke. Stroke can be of two types. It can either be a hemorrhagic stroke, which we called as a brain hemorrhage, or it can either be an ischemic stroke, in which the blood vessel is blocked, leading to the necrosis of the particular portion of brain. Ischemic strokes most commonly occur because of high cholesterol in the body. The high cholesterol in the body leads to the development of atherosclerotic plaques in the blood vessels, and that plaque usually, sorry, and that plaque usually block particular blood vessels in the brain, and the area dies. And the hemorrhagic stroke occur mainly because of high blood pressure. When continuously a certain rise in blood pressure remains in body, the vessels become very weak. The vessels become thicker, they lose their ability to dilate, and at the same time they become very weak. And they become weak to an extent that they lose their ability to dilate. So if a certain limit of blood pressure is crossed for any particular reason, the blood vessels in the brain ruptures and it leads to an hemorrhagic stroke. And we all know that what are the outcomes of stroke, whether it can be ischemic or whether it can be hemorrhagic. The third most important disease which occur because of these conditions is chronic kidney failure. My friends, chronic kidney disease is a very serious and drastic disease. And the most dreadful thing about CKD or chronic kidney disease is that we do not comes to know that the patient is suffering from a renal disease until it has come to a point where there is a point of no return. Kidneys consist of multiple portions. It has renal medulla, it has renal cortex, it has renal pyramids. Every particular thing has its own function in clearance of debris from the body and in the production of urine. But when patients remain hypertensive for over a long period of time, proper amount of nutrition and blood is not pumped to the kidney. The kidneys shrink, and when they shrink to an extent that they cannot function properly, what will happen? Chronic kidney disease or renal failure will happen. And the only option left when the patient suffers from a chronic renal disease is a transplant. And we all know that what is the cost of transplant and how difficult it is to find any donor for a patient who is suffering from a kidney disease or a kidney failure. The fourth most important disease which occurs because of high blood pressure is sexual dysfunction, particularly erectile dysfunctions in human males. My friends, the erectile organ, the penis, consists of erectile tissue, the corpus spongiosum, and the blood vessels in them. Usually, we all know that the penis remain in resting state or in shrinking stage. When sexual excitation occurs, the corpora open up and the blood vessels in them open up, which leads to pouring of large quantity of blood in the penis and it leads to an erection. But when patients suffer from hypertension for over a long period of time, sclerosing starts to occur in the penile tissue, and the vessels become so hard and so rigid that they are not able to open up whenever there is a sexual excitation. Then ultimately, patient become impotent or it suffers from an erectile dysfunction. And it is indeed a very embarrassing condition and disease. Anyone who has suffered from erectile dysfunction or is suffering from erectile dysfunction can clearly depict or explain that how bad or embarrassing situation it is. Another most important disease which occur because of high blood pressure is the vision loss. Almost 80% of the learning of human being is done by his vision. But when a patient loses its ability to see, the world around him become dark and he loses his ability to survive or live. When a patient suffers from high blood pressure for over a long period of time, the blood vessels in the retinal portion of eye, become so thin and they usually become like a copper wire or a silver wire. They become so thin and so weak that they are not able to provide adequate nutrition to the retina. And the retina is very much necessary to see in both light and at the night. And when the retinopathy occurs, particularly hypertrophic or hypertensive retinopathy occurs, the patient loses its ability to see. Another important disease which occurs in eye because of high blood pressure is the retinal detachment, in which the retina open up or its bursts open and it leads to the blindness. So it is very bad disease, and the only option left is just to wait and until the patient dies. Another most important disease which can occur because of high blood pressure is the peripheral artery disease, particularly in the lower limb. When the blood vessels in the lower limb in the legs become thick, become hard, loses their ability to dilate, the organs or the muscles in our limbs does not receive proper amount of nutrition. And whenever patient tries to do exercise or tries to walk, the legs become so tight that patient cannot walk and he needs to sit down. This is because the legs are not getting adequate nutrition. And when this happens and it's not treated, it can come to the point that ultimately the vessels are blocked and the only option left is amputation or the cutting of limbs, and the patient becomes handicapped for over a long period of time. Abdominal aortic aneurysm is another condition which can occur when a patient suffers from high blood pressure. The abdominal aorta supplies all the major organs of our abdomen and in the lower limb. But when hypertension or high blood pressure remains in the body for a long period of time, arteriolosclerosis or sclerosing of aorta occurs, which leads to the weakening of the abdominal aortic wall and it bursts open. And this is certainly a death penalty if abdominal bursts open. Another important disease which occurs when a patient suffers from high blood pressure is the pulmonary effusion or pulmonary hypertension. Because of hypertension or high cholesterol or high blood pressure, heart is put under a lot of stress. And when heart is put under a lot of stress, it has a direct connection or a direct link to the lungs or the pulmonary circulation. The heart is unable to pump the blood starts to accumulate in the lungs, in the abdominal cavity, and when the blood starts to accumulate in the lungs, it ultimately leads to the development of the pleural effusion and shortness of breath, pulmonary hypertension, and the patient dies. And there is an ongoing list. My friends, I can list thousands of diseases which can occur when a patient suffers from hypertension and that hypertension remains untreated. I would say that every chronic disease in the body which occur over a period of time, at some point it has relation or link to high blood pressure. So it is very necessary for every one of us to get ourselves checked that whether we are suffering from high blood pressure or not. In the previous video, I talked in detail about what is hypertension, and in the coming video, I will talk in detail about what are the basic things which should be included in our diet that can help us treat hypertension in a natural way. All those dietary things, all those substances will be told by me, and all those things which would be very readily available to all of you. So it is advised to please watch our next video so you get the idea of the substances which should be included in diet to treat hypertension. Till then, best wishes, take care of your health. Goodbye.